What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick. Woke up with a kinked neck and now I'm in extreme pain, cactus. And today we're going to be going over the worst things to happen within Destiny 2 for 2024, with the hopes that Bungie can receive this feedback both from what I'm saying and also from your contributions within the comments and address these problems in the future. Now, if any of you are halfway typing out a comment about how negative this Rick Gackus guy is, don't worry, tomorrow we will have a video going over the best things to happen within Destiny 2 for 2024. So don't worry, everything will be perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Alright, now let's get started. And these are kind of going in ascending order of how bad I think they are. And I just want to start with the thing that's happening right now, and that is the events. So we have multiple events throughout the year. We're gonna kind of start in the spring with Guardian Games. After that, we have Solstice of Heroes in the summer. Then we have Festival of the Lost in the fall. And finally, we have The Dawning, which is ongoing. And frankly, these events have not changed in quite a while, and they're just so underwhelming, especially The Dawning, man. Oh my goodness, the fact that there's no new activity to play, so all you're doing is checkpoint farming Dawning Essence to make cookies, to desperately try to get these weapons, it's just not it anymore. Now, I will say the fact that Bungie always does add a brand new legendary weapon and then refurbishes the old previous year's legendary weapons with new perks. Sometimes there is some really good weapons to go after, there really is. But when you're playing nothing new in the case of The Dawning, or you're grinding just one kind of boring activity over and over again, you know, for example, like Solstice of Heroes, like the Bonfire Bash gets old pretty quick, it just becomes tedious. These are and should be used as great ways to kind of refresh the content for free for everyone in the middle of a lull, but unfortunately, they just need some drastic improvements. Now, moving on from there, guys, the next worst thing to happen throughout the year has gotta be bugs and glitches. Now, these happen every year, but in 2024, they feel like a much bigger issue than usual, and we'll get into the reasons why later in the video, but the fact of the matter remains, man, we have had some big bugs, some big glitches, and we've had some big launches ruined by these things. For example, the Vesper's Host Dungeon. Bungie does, for the first time, a dungeon race, and it was actually a pretty sweet new thing, and I'm looking forward to the next dungeon race, but my goodness, the disabled list still haunts us to this day. Bungie disabled a bunch of weapons and abilities and so on, some of which ended up not being properly disabled. For example, the Wardcliff Coil you could still use, and Bungie said, well, it'll crash your game. Well, I used it quite a bit, and it didn't crash my game. It did crash my game once, though, so I can't say for sure that, you know, it's 100% gonna crash. My point is, a lot of these things, it seemed like Bungie was just disabling it to make it harder, but again, the fact that you have this group of weapons that is crashing your game just for using it in a certain encounter seems insane, and on top of that, the real problem is that you have Tether still disabled to this day. The dungeon came out in mid-October, and you're telling me I still have no reason to play a Night Stalker Hunter in there? Like, what is going on? That is actually crazy. And the fact that, you know, we have this entire subclass essentially that becomes useless because its super is just, you know, not even able to be used in a very important encounter throughout the entire dungeon, honestly, just sucks. And again, that is just a very obvious example of the bugs and glitches we have experienced throughout this year. Most notably, also recently with The Dawning. Oh my goodness, the event card that you were supposed to pay for, well, you could just claim it without spending any silver. So then they had to pause it, and then they took it away from people, then they gave it back to people, and then the quest wasn't working, and then it's like, oh my gosh. Not to mention, we found out that random perk rolls weren't actually random for years, and after denying this problem, Bungie was presented by so much evidence from the community, they had to admit fault and fix this problem, and now you can still go to the gunsmith and basically get your apology weapons for how big of a problem this was. Just crazy. you know, you have stuff that could be good content, and like Vesper's host as a dungeon was still such a good dungeon, people still enjoyed it, but then these things just ruin the experience and they ruin launches, and it's just not acceptable. The amount of bugs and glitches we are getting with these launches is really ruining the player experience, and Bungie needs to invest more in QA to get this stuff ironed out before these launches actually happen. All right, moving on from there. The next worst thing, and honestly I could just put here PvP. The state of PvP investment. Now, we did actually get this year the PvP map pack, so there was a little bit of investment, but really not too much changed. PvP is still struggling, and apparently episode Heresy, the next episode coming up, is going to add some more PvP stuff, but who really knows? The problem is that I really don't play enough PvP to comment too much on this. I'm a PvE guy, but just note, in this video, I'm 100% saying PvP has had such pathetic investment as usual, and it does need support. But my kind of main thing, the thing I want to talk about next on this list, is just episodes. Now, I was originally thinking of doing episode Echoes and then episode Revenant because they were both kind of a miss, or doing the content and then the layout because those were both kind of a miss, but frankly, let's just talk about episodes broadly because it was all just a miss. We recently had the lowest player count ever recorded on Steam for Destiny 2. Clearly, players are not vibing with the episode content. Now, I kind of feel almost bad putting this in here because episodes are clearly a stopgap while Bungie ramps up to the Frontiers layout. So in case you don't know, starting in 2025 in the summer, we will have a new medium-sized expansion codename Apollo. And then in the winter, we will have codename Behemoth, another medium-sized expansion. Instead of having seasons or episodes, we're going to be going forward with 2 medium-sized expansions per year, which means new locations, new campaigns, a lot more content in each of these bigger expansions compared to seasons that would usually fill up the year. And obviously, after the final shape, the huge expansion, Bungie had to, have something to plug the gap while they were working on the Frontiers content and getting ready for 2 expansions per year. And so what we got was episodes. And if you look at the layout, it's literally just less content, right? Normally, we would have a big expansion, and then a season would launch alongside that expansion at the same time, and then you would have 3 other seasons before the next big expansion. But with episodes, we had episode Echoes launch alongside the final shape. Then we have 2 more episodes, Revenant that's going on right now, and then Heresy, and then we have codename Apollo. So you have 1 less season, essentially. And so obviously these episodes have about a season's worth of content, maybe actually more, but it's stretched for a longer period of time, and then that content feels a lot weaker. Especially because you have the Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 content launches. Honestly, maybe Bungie just shouldn't have done that. Now, I don't even know if it would have been better to launch everything, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, everything off the launch, have actually a pretty content-rich launch, and then everything just trails off for several months. But the way it's spread out right now just doesn't really feel good, especially the Act 2s have just felt incredibly underwhelming, and the Act 1s, the actual launches, feel like they're just missing content because they literally are. You're not getting as many seasonal weapons as you otherwise would because those seasonal weapons are coming in Act 2 and Act 3. Not to mention, the storytelling has just been not great. And again, this is just a stopgap. We're getting into awesome new stuff within Frontiers, the actual next saga, whatever you want to say, of Destiny. But like right now, we're in this weird point where we beat the Witness, and now it's like, the Witness's crumbs that he left, and then people have gotten these crumbs and they're being very naughty, but we're just gonna go get him, I guess. It just is lame, right? And again, I feel kind of bad because it is just a temporary stopgap. Episodes are going away when Frontiers comes out, but man, it has just been a miss here, and I think that players have just really not liked how episodes are laid out and the content that is within them. I especially wish we had just more exciting activities to play. Like the Tomb of Elders is actually not that bad, except for you're playing it for what, 2 weapons that launch in Act 2, and it just feels like underwhelming. I have no desire to go and play that because I can just put on a potion and play whatever I want and still grind that weapon. It just doesn't, it's just not it. It's just not it for episodes. But moving on from there, the thing at the top of my list for the worst of 2024 is Bungie. Now, that sounds pretty harsh, and it kind of is, but here's what I mean. Bungie as a studio, whenever you see the word Bungie in gaming news, it's never a good thing, is it? Like, we started the year with a big round of layoffs. We then found out that Bungie CEO Pete Parsons is spending millions of dollars on classic cars in his car collection, while also simultaneously saying that they need to make these cuts in terms of layoffs because they have no money. The studio just spent too much money. Well, I have a little bit of an idea of where the money's all going. It's to the C-suite executives who are the people making these terrible decisions in the first place. The reason Bungie Studio had to make all these cuts is because they were working on like 5 different games in the background just to cancel all but Marathon. Like, the amount of expenditure on these projects that went nowhere was just crazy. And again, it's not random developers. It's not the guy that's tasked with developing exotic weapons that's saying, hey, we should start working on a new game. It's obviously the C-suite executives who are making these horrendous decisions. Imagine if those resources were just reinvested into Destiny 2, how much better content we could get. Now, I know some people are saying, hey, look, it's his money. He can buy all these cars. Yeah, it's his money, and he has the right to buy whatever he wants. But guess what? I have the right to criticize him, so here we are, baby. So anyways, it's just, we start out with that. Guess what's now in the news? Well, they fire Chris Barrett as the director of Marathon, the next new game, replace him, and now he's suing Bungie for $200 million. So here's the thing. Again, every time you see Bungie in the news, it's bad news. And so you have this aura around this game that it's dying. And if you really do look at the Steam numbers, if you look at the player count, it is one of the healthiest live service games out there. Like, seriously, the amount of people that log in every day, even when Destiny is at its worst, is crazy. Most games would kill to have the Destiny fan base with how many people log in every single day. Seriously, like, just looking at the raw numbers, it's unbelievably impressive how many people Destiny 2 pulls in all the time, right, throughout the year. But because of this constant negative media attention from all the shenanigans, involved with Bungie, and then getting bought out by Sony, and then lying about how much money they were making, and then it flooded, all this crap, an outside observer is simply going to think that Destiny 2 is just on its last legs. Maybe it is, but like, with Foundations and stuff coming, we have some hope here, guys. And Destiny players kind of know, but people who don't play Destiny just look from the outside and see an absolute train wreck, and why wouldn't they? So Sony honestly has got to get it together with Bungie. No more layoffs, none of that stuff, because it just looks so bad. Like, from an outside perspective, you're not going to attract new players if they feel like they're starting up a game in a studio that's about to die, right? And again, maybe it is, but for God's sakes, at least put up the facade a little bit better, Sony, because it's just driving away so many potential players who honestly would like Destiny. When people actually do give Destiny a try, they often really enjoy it because there's so much content. Gameplay is super smooth. Like, they're like, wow, where was this game the whole time? But it's just that negative perception of Bungie and of Destiny 2 being this dying game that's preventing people from wanting to try it. That is, I don't even know how they changed that, but man, it's really been a bad thing going with 2024. Hopefully that turns around with Foundations. And I know I'm going to make a whole video on the positives of 2024, but seriously, the good news is that a lot of the things I've brought up in this video is going to be addressed with Foundations. No more episodes, right? We're going to a completely new content layout. Bungie is really redesigning a lot of stuff. Armor is completely changing. I have not cared about an armor drop for multiple years. Now, I actually might, so we do have some hope on the horizon. But what do you guys think? What was the worst things to happen for 2024 in your experience? Let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, that is going to be it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this content. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.